Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of
Gato.
My name is Hans.
I'm Edward.
And we're your hosts for now and forevermore.
Or unless Spider-Man comes and swings us away into Foreverland, you know.
Well, listen, at this point in time, he doesn't even know how to get back home because there's no way home. And and what is cool about that, and although we're not going to be talking about multidimensional travel in this episode, which Spider-Man is coming to collect you, Edward? That's another question. Given that there's so many now from all the different universes.
Always Toby. Always Toby.
The original.
Yeah.
Well, the original live action Spider-Man, right?
Is it the original though? Because some Japanese one, like from the 80s.
The first big budget live action Spider-Man.
The first Hollywood live action.
Live action. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Or the first licensed one, right? Because I don't think the others were licensed. Hey,
probably not.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. No.
It even looked a little bit like.
You should know though, because you're the huge fan.
Pirated.
Speaking of, I see in the background there you have a beautiful new figure. Lovely.
Courtesy of you, Hans. Thank you.
Oh, well, I wasn't looking for I just wanted to point it out, how nice that is, and the Gundam as well. Oh, it's really pretty.
It is. I posed it earlier, but the manual keeps saying, like, if you're going to leave it for a while, unpose it, because otherwise... I think it's because of the material.
For those of you who are listening, I gifted Edward a Spider-Man Avengers Infinity War, or is it Endgame?
This is Endgame.
An Endgame Hot Toys figure for his 30th birthday.
Yeah.
So he's currently showing, or he was showing that off in the camera, and now he's also showing off the most incredible Gundam statue or figurine that he's busy building at the moment.
Yeah, it's a model. Yeah,
it's really
basically done. I just need to build the weapons and the backpack still. The rest of the backpack. This has been a week.
So, interestingly enough, and I can sort of relate this, I guess, is you're showing me figurines at the moment.
Yeah.
And with all due respect, the Hot Toys things can be quite lifelike.
Mm-hmm.
But they're never quite lifelike.
They're uncanny, if you will.
Yes.
It's actually scary.
So Edward is leading us quite wonderfully into today's topic of conversation. And for those who don't know, it is the Uncanny Valley. The interestingly, or rather, the weird place whereby the human mind struggles to process the aesthetics of a humanoid-looking device, I want to say, to the point where you can tell. Oh, it actually doesn't have to be device, just anything that is human looking, where you can tell that it's not quite real.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
Now, when I say real, I don't mean real in a physical sense. Because a humanoid robot is real in a physical sense. It's just that the humanness of the robot, the aesthetic, exactly.
Yeah.
For the most part, gives people a feeling of unease. And that is literally the Uncanny Valley, where you'll look at something and you can't put your finger on why, but it doesn't seem human enough.
Yeah.
So that is what we're going to be speaking about today. And it's interesting that, you brought up the whole Spider-Man thing, because I know you're quite keen for No Way Home, right?
Yes, I am.
And that's an interesting point to take, because when it comes to film and cinema, I feel that is often the most egregious violator of the Uncanny Valley.
Oh, so much.
Like one of the prime and most recent examples would be Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, when they showed them in it was the latest film. No, sorry, it was that film that bridged the gap between episodes 3 and 4. Yes, thank you.
So the thing is, Rogue One only had Princess Leia and Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yes,
I think both of them were amazing.
They were not good enough, in my personal opinion.
Luke Skywalker, though, in the Mandalorian finale, That was bad.
So you see now this is where the fascination of the Uncanny Valley comes into place. And I did a little bit of reading into it, and I found out that it was actually coined by a Japanese scientist in the 1970s, a man by the name of Masahiro Mori. And he wrote a paper about what it means to look at things that are humanoid and how that makes you feel. And he actually had the most interesting graph about how, like, you can clearly see things are not real, right? So, like, we know, for example, the hot toys in your background, those are not real, right? You can clearly see that despite the similarity to the actors that they're portrayed on, it's clearly a toy or a collectible, right? Exactly. And he has this thing which goes up, and then eventually it drops to what is called the Uncanny Valley, where you're looking at things that are so real and almost incredibly lifelike that they could almost pass for being human, but there is something about them that throws it off. An uneasy feeling in the human psyche about that this doesn't seem legitimate.
That's odd.
It's odd. It's weird. Now, I want to come back to that feeling in a little bit, because I have a fun hypothesis that we can just throw around, which relates to a lot of what we've spoken about in Gettle before.
Okay.
Before we get there, I did mention how I felt that movies are egregious in this sense, because a lot of the times movies overuse CGI. And more often than not, you can tell when a character is real or fake. So as in the examples that Edward just gave us now, in Rogue One, where we saw Princess Leia and Grand Moff Tarkin, or in The Mandalorian, where we saw Luke Skywalker, it is so evident that there is something off with these characters, despite how much effort has obviously gone into making them as lifelike as possible. There's just something that's off.
See, I think that the reason we noticed it so quickly, especially in those two series or projects, the reason we noticed it so quickly is because everything else in those movies and series is incredible. Like, look at I forgot her name now, but the Jedi.
There are many Jedi.
I know, played by Rosario Dawson.
Rosario Dawson's character.
Yes. Now she had practical makeup.
Yes.
And practical prosthetics.
Yes.
So it became a part of her. She's real. She's physical.
I know this is wrong. I want to say Azor Ahai, which is from Game of Thrones.
I know. That's the first thing that went into my mind as well. I'm like, no.
And then I wanted to say Tali, but that's Mass Effect. The fact that we're both blanking on this is quite bad. That's
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka, thank you. There we go. So we got it. Okay, cool. So
eventually.
You see, now what's fascinating about that, right, is practical effects are always going to be better than CGI.
Yes.
And do you know why, though? Do you want to know one of the major reasons why that is?
Because it's real.
No, it's because of lighting. So I've watched a lot of videos and things about this, because I'm a huge fan of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And even to this day, the 1993 film has practical effects and CGI that are so good, they almost, to an extent, even stand up to 25, 30 years later,
it's
compared
incredible.
to current and new CGI. But the reason why is because of the lighting. So what made those films special is that it was still a time where CGI was a burgeoning field. It wasn't the be-all and end-all. Like today, 90% of the time, maybe actors make up 20% of the film, and the other 70%, they're actually just a CGI character floating around. DC is one of the worst offenders in this regard. But in Jurassic Park, they actually created not just physical models, like actual, let's say, 1 to 10 scale models, that they then were able to base lighting off of, which then made the CGI so much more realistic. But they also built 1-to-1 scale creations and robots of these creatures. So therefore, in a lot of the scenes, they could match the lighting 1-to-1 between the CGI and the physical prop. And that's why today it stands up to the degree that it does.
Yeah, it's the same lighting that the actor is getting. and the scene is getting. So
correct.
It's all uniform. And
but you
all
see,
the same,
so this apparently is the major issue with CGI at the moment, because a lot of things have to be placed into a scene. And if there is dynamic lighting, so it's not static. So with all due respect, a lot of some of the best scenes in Jurassic Park had somewhat static lighting. It was nighttime, so maybe there was only one single bulb, or maybe there was a flash of lightning here and there. So it was enough to, not influence the scene too much from a CGI perspective, which is why it's so good. Whereas today, a lot of the times you can just look at it and be like, that's CGI. Like you can actually look at any of the Jurassic World movies and be like, that's CGI. You can actually almost 100% see the difference between what is CGI and what is a prop, because it just looks off. And that is, interestingly enough, still part of the Uncanny Valley. It's just a different part of it. So although I know our discussion is eventually going to move more into the humanoid aspect of it, there is more to it though. And that's very much like how you can tell the difference between what is real and what is fake, or what is real and what is imaginary. And, technology is advancing so much today that, and I know we've spoken about this in a previous episode of Yedel as well, is the Unreal Engine. How they've used that for The Mandalorian and many, many other new films to create scenes that can be done on the fly, because the hardware is powerful enough to render almost lifelike visuals.
Yeah.
And, with that in mind, something else that 100% fits in with this Uncanny Valley experience is the Matrix Awakens Unreal 5 experience.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Edward, you've tried it. Have you seen it?
I've seen it.
And what did you think?
I refuse to believe that it's all in-game, as it were, but I think it's still very much not real.
Okay.
So I remember we looked at it together, and
you're somewhat correct. So I did a little bit more digging. But before we talk about that, I just want to mention that the Matrix Awakens Unreal 5 engine experience is a demo for next generation consoles created to showcase what can be done with Unreal Engine 5. And it is, for what it is, a glorified tech demo. It is insane. It actually is, it's 2021's equivalent of the 1993 dinosaur T-Rex from the PlayStation 1. I don't know if you ever tried that out.
No, I didn't.
It was one of, I used to always put that demo disc in and just spin the T-Rex around because it was just so incredible. Because, I'm a fan of dinosaurs, and how many times I would have to say that. So, so this, what the Matrix Awakens tech demo is about showcasing how, because games and cinema are merging from a technological standpoint, they wanted to showcase how, okay, cool, we're using gaming technologies to create the film, but what if we then took that, because it's in the Unreal Engine anyway, and made it into an experience that you can play? So the whole point of it is to say, okay, cool, we now have hardware powerful enough at home to render movie-grade graphical effects. And so it's just a wonderful showcase of how the two industries can work synergistically. As in, while you're producing a film, you can then take all of those assets and create a video game. And for me, that's just the most exciting prospect of what is to come, right?
Yes.
Now. Before we sidetrack too much from the technological perspective, the thing that is most impressive about it, and I implore anybody out there who has a PlayStation 5 or a Xbox Series X to download it, it's free, it's on the relevant stores, is how they've done their best to broach the Uncanny Valley. And truthfully speaking, no other franchise is as perfectly suited to do it as The Matrix.
It even makes sense.
Right? Like, it's all about jacking in. Yes, it's thematically accurate. And so I mention that because there's a really incredible first few minutes of when you boot up the demo, where it's a scene-for-scene replication of when Neo wakes up in the original film. And what is so incredible about it is that is confirmed being rendered in real time on whatever console you're playing on. And it's so good, but just not good enough to pass the Uncanny Valley test.
It's a little off, just a tiny wee off.
That just ever so slightly off is what makes the Uncanny Valley so fascinating, because I do believe we will eventually get to that point where whether something is CGI or if something is real, we might mistake it for being human.
The thing is, do you remember a little movie called The Orient Express? I think it's The Orient Express anyway, where it just started with the real Uncanny Valley type stuff, and it was super bad. It was so bad, people became uneasy in
really
theaters and
no
stuff. Yeah, and myself included.
But isn't Orient Express a full-on CG film?
Yes, it's full on CG, but it tried to emulate reality so weirdly that it was just off. It was completely off. And I think that translated badly into the final cut or whatever it is. And compare that to today's stuff, where you get movies like A Little Battle Angel, which is all CG as well.
Not all of it, but remember, that's also... It's purposefully...
Yeah, okay. It's got real actors and stuff.
It's purposefully... I mean, there's a mix of practical and CGI, because I mean, Alita herself is CGI, her face.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so it's there is a touch of fantastical to it. So it's not necessarily trying to be super realistic in the way that the dinosaurs were in Jurassic Park, or the way that like superheroes are in the Marvel Universe.
Yes, of course. And I was going to say stuff like the Marvel movies, like that the entire war scene in Infinity War.
Oh, it's 90% CGI.
It was 90% CGI, but it looked so good.
Do you know where I see technology having reached or surpassed the Uncanny Valley?
Where?
Scenery.
Yeah.
Scenery and backgrounds. Like I have many times in the past actually been quite mind blown when I watch behind the scenes and I realize, oh wow, they actually didn't shoot on location. Like that's incredible. But now bear in mind, it's not necessarily just a green screen effect. It's not just them behind. It's more like they're on a practical set, but the actual far distant background is now CGI. And actually, I have found that backgrounds and things that they are doing almost perfectly now. And you know, the Matrix Awakens demo almost showcases that, because there are moments when you can actually take control of the demo and fly around. Some of the city scenes look photorealistic, as if I took a picture of that and sent it to somebody, you'd be hard pressed to tell me that that's not real.
Oh, I think it's real, 100%.
Yes.
So it's literally that. Like I recall now in the developers' commentary, the director's commentary for Lord of the Rings, a lot of it was shot on location.
Yes,
obviously,
of course.
It's famously famous for it, but a lot of it was shot entirely in a green screen room. And I remember the Peter McKellen, I think his name is
Ian McKellen.
Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember a scene where they sit in front of this entrance to the Mines of Moria, and the director, Peter Jackson, that's what I was thinking of. He explained that basically Sir Ian McKellen became demotivated, or what's the correct word? He became...
Why? Because it was not real?
Because, everything was fake. Everything wasn't real. And they kind of had to shoot past that. They had to basically work around that.
Yeah, because it's taxing to use your imagination the entire time.
Exactly.
There's a very different sense of captured awe on somebody's face when you can see something real versus trying to imagine it's there. And again, another reason why Jurassic Park was so incredible, because those children reacting to the T-Rex, like when they were in the car, for example,
an actual T-Rex.
That was actually a T-Rex attacking them.
Exactly.
Because I stand to be corrected, but if memory serves, that window frame wasn't supposed to push through onto them. when they were in the car screaming like that.
Yeah.
So when that happened, they genuinely screamed because it was
that also goes back to Alien, the original movie, starring Sigourney Weaver.
The chest burster scene.
Yes. Apparently, only half the crews expected that, and it was. Most of the reaction you see in the final shot is actual first-time reactions, which is amazing.
Now, okay, so I know that I do want to talk more about Uncanny Valley, but look at how the what a difference there is between a practical effect, right, which although fake is still more real than something that isn't there for somebody to work with. Do you see hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I want to now talk about humanoid robotics. In particular, there's this one from a company called Engineering Arts. They're a United Kingdom-based designer and manufacturer of humanoid robots. And I came across a video of theirs that admittedly I thought was CGI. Turns out it's not. It's real. It's actual real robot that... No, I'm not talking about artificial intelligence now, right? But I just mean from a mechanical, physical perspective. It's this robot with such human features that I didn't believe it was real. I was like, no, that's a CGI face. There's no way that they've gotten to the point where, you know, the wrinkles around the eyes and the nose is so accurate that they could actually replicate it using machinery. Needless to say, it blew my mind. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because despite it being so incredibly realistic, there is still that feeling of unease looking at this robot, because you look at it, you know it's a robot, but there's just that something that's a little bit off. As incredible as the reactions are, you know, the way that the cheeks crinkle and the mouth crinkles and the nose moves, as accurate as it all is, there is just something off. Just off.
In fact, it's so off you want to think it's CGI again. Otherwise, you think it's real.
It. Thank you. That's exactly why I was watching it and I was like, nah, there's no way. See, first of all, for me, you know, if you look at a lot of robotic developments, there's not much is, in my opinion, being done, or enough is being done on human faces to make them more lifelike. Now, engineered arts obviously are doing it. I mean, they have, you can actually see the progress of all of their robots. And even from a year ago, this thing is, you know, a year ago, you could see that this is a robot, clearly. Like, the facial animations aren't working. Now, I'm thinking it's CGI, but it's actually legitimately the facial reaction. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And the reason why I want to bring that up is twofold, right? So, first of all, it is about, you know, how incredible would it then be for movies and cinema? Imagine now a more of a practical robotic person in place of a CGI actor to do more incredible stunts or crazy antics, right? That's number one. I mean, it'll just be incredible. But now, more importantly, and this is something I'm hoping you'll go down the rabbit hole with me about, okay? And that is, why do we have this innate unease when we're looking at something that is that is trying to be as human as possible, but we can just tell that it's not?
Gut reaction tell me it's an instinct thing, a human survival instinct thing.
Thank you.
Kind of like how insects mimic other insects, and then some insects will know that.
Yes.
I think it's a reaction thing.
So,
it's an instinct thing.
That is my belief as well, okay? Is that it is very much instinctual. It's in us on a primordial level to be able to distinguish what is really human, okay? But now think about this, right? Generally speaking, that kind of a physiological, mental reaction is generally, from an evolutionary standpoint, because of something. So something has to have happened to the animal or the creature, whatever, for it to evolve the capacity to know that what it's looking at is not genuine or legitimate. Correct? Like you're saying how the bugs would, for example, they evolved the ability to tell the difference between what is genuinely them and what isn't, so that they don't get eaten, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened thousands and thousands or hundreds of thousands of millennia ago for us to have this built-in sense to distinguish whether something is really human or not?
You're doing a deep dive into my deepest conspiracy theories here, and humanity origin stories.
There we go. I was so
aliens,
glad. But really, just think about that for a second. Just for a moment. Postulate. What does that mean? Could it mean that thousands of years ago, or maybe even further back, there was something that was humanoid but not humanoid, or not exactly human, but came across as human, and either we were the prey, right? Or we were just different enough that
to know
our primordial senses ensured we would always know the difference.
That's a good question. Come together for some philosophy.
Yeah, this is the whole if you go down the rabbit hole and you think about ancient civilizations and the possibility that we've been visited by extraterrestrials, this all kind of then you could somehow on some level with a tinfoil hat on attribute it to that. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it could also really just be a means of ensuring that maybe if we go back hundreds of thousands of years, the cavemen, where they could distinguish between their own tribes people, because we have different races in the world today, so we must assume that hundreds of thousands of years ago there were probably different races of all of these people as well.
Perhaps that's it. Because we are so different, no human is the same, and because many years ago we had to distinguish between different clans and stuff without any vocal.
Correct.
Maybe that's why. So I'm going over your point now, but maybe instead of it being some primordial thing, it's literally just the fact of we are so used to distinguishing different things that when we see this, we know it's different. We know it's
so you see
strange.
Yes, I would imagine it's very much a survival thing. Okay. And if you do go back all of those backs, it doesn't matter, cavemen and other clans, they had to know each other and they had to know whether a rival clan would attack them. Do you know what I'm talking about, right? So the interesting thing, though, that I want to just put out there as well is that it doesn't matter what race someone is. We can always tell that they're human.
Yeah.
So then doesn't that negate what we think? Because if we can, or maybe there's no rivalry today. There's no rivalry today, but still, see, this it's not quite Uncanny Valley territory. In other words, you could look at somebody who's Hispanic or Asian or African, and you can tell that's human. They're real, they're human, they're beautiful, but not if it was a robot in it that had a skin tone color on. You'd be able to immediately tell that something is off.
See, again, I think that literally blends into the fact that you can tell they're human. Because you can tell what's human, you can also tell what's not.
Or again, maybe it was, if you believe in the theory of evolution and that we come from apes, right? Maybe it was that. Maybe it was how genetically, as the human race formed, we ended up gravitating more towards more human-looking ancestors. So that's how we ended up with humans today versus our ape ancestors, if that's what you believe in. Do you know what I mean? So then that way you could immediately tell, oh no, that's not as humanoid as me. I shouldn't breed with them. I should breed with the other clan.
I mean,
who knows? Now we're just hypothesizing.
Yeah. That's interesting. Though.
So that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to know, like the big thing for me is just if we decide to have fun with it, and we consider ETs and so on and so forth, then what if it wasn't evolutionary? What if it was just these beings who came and we then developed a mechanism to make sure that that's not human.
Yeah, maybe it was some Assassin's Creed type shit where the first civilization were human, quote unquote,
yes,
but they were like these Greek gods.
Yeah, exactly.
These ancient gods.
Exactly. Look, either way, and we've spoken about this before. I'm quite keen on robots. Especially like these genuinely human-looking ones, because I can already imagine, for example, them being in like service, roles. Like when you check into a restaurant, or check into like a mall, or so like Detroit Become Human is probably one of the best examples of Uncanny Valley from a visual perspective, but Uncanny Valley from the perspective of androids becoming so lifelike that you can confuse them for being human unless they have like a blinking light or something, And perhaps that's the future we're headed towards. Who knows?
Or perhaps not, since everyone will see, you're fake.
Oh, no, that's the thing.
Put your light back on, bitch.
I do think we're eventually going to get to that point where it's going to be difficult, and I am so keen. Because not everyone is the same, right? I'm very good at picking out what's real and what's fake. I say this because I played the Matrix Awakens demo with my folks, and they couldn't tell. They couldn't tell when the real Keanu was on and when the
I had
the
a hard
CGI
time with
one
that as well.
But for me, it's instant. I can immediately tell. At least right now. Maybe 5 years from now, I might not be able to. But yeah, it's interesting. Ed, how do you feel about it? Are you keen? Are you looking forward to it? To our listeners, are you keen? Are you interested?
At least for me, it's not really something I really put.
You just want a sex bot, right?
But see, those already exist. I don't need them to be more real than they already are.
You don't need this. But we've spoken about sex dolls before. Imagine now having this kind of a realistic face on it. I will include the link to this video in the show notes, and I implore you all to go and watch it because it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating.
The only things that go through my mind is like the Ex Machina type stuff, and
yes.
I don't know, though, like as beautiful as that is, I wouldn't want that.
I don't know. I'd be happy having a humanoid Roomba.
I wouldn't mind.
That can clean my apartment and then service me.
No? I mean, 2-in-1. That's good.
Well, anyway, I think we've reached the natural end of this discussion for this episode. Hey, Ed. Yeah. It was great.
With a mind blowing.
I just love how you thought the same thing as me. I loved that, and how we both went down that little bit of a path,
rabbit hole.
It's so great, and I really hope that those who are listening, like, I would love to know your opinion. Did you also think of things like that, or like, what is your interpretation of why humanity or humans struggle with the Uncanny Valley? I'm curious to know. So yeah. Well, anyway, that's it for Get L 80. It is our last episode for 2021. So the next time you see our beautiful mugs, if you're watching, or listen to our voices, it'll be 2022 or 2020 New Game Plus.
New Game Plus. To those of you who play Dark Souls. Let's hope not. Let's hope it's a new game.
Yeah, listen. No, we just want a soft reboot, please. I just want a soft reboot of 2019.
Just remake it already.
Yeah. Okay, well, there we go. That's it. From Edward and myself, we hope that you all have a blessed Christmas season and a wonderful New Year. Please look after all of yourselves, and we look forward to seeing you all in the New Year.
Yeah.
So, until then, everybody, ciao for now.
Bye.